Before we begin, drop a quick hello in the comments. It might feel like nothing, but believe me, it pushes YouTube to share this story with more sci-fi fans. I'd really like to see who's here. The chamber ignited with light. The great hall of the Galactic Council surged awake. Arguments clashed, translators droned, projectors blinked, and shimmering holograms rose into form. Armored generals, draped diplomats, and shapes no human mind could easily endure filled the floor. Politics here wasn't dialogue. It was intimidation. At the core, upon a glowing circular dais, stood Grand Executive Karen Dul of the Jari Dominion. Broad and immovable, his dark azure skin gleamed beneath the overhead beams, highlighting the bands of bronze scales lining his forearms and shoulders. A bony crown along his skull added nearly half a foot to his stature, making his very posture a declaration of dominance. His gaze swept across the assembly, holding long enough to guarantee silence before his words began. With a sharp flick of his claw, the first image stretched high above him. Distorted surveillance captured angular gray-plated ships carving through an asteroid field. Harsh mining beams split the rock, scattering fragments into gravitational nets. This was the Rathari Belt, neutral territory, shielded under council law, and still, human vessels ripped ore from its guardians without sanction, without review, without even pretending to honor the council's rule. The projection shifted wider, showing the same expanse as transports moved in neat formation toward. A towering freighter, its hull branded with the unshakable crest of United Earth. Karen let the scene linger, then summoned another. This one revealed lifeless moons, marred by fresh construction. Prefab domes clung to crater rims, while docking pads swarmed with constant shuttle activity. Human crews in pressure suits dragged container after container of supplies. And here, he declared, we witness their colonies multiplying upon territories marked as neutral ground. They construct, they arm, they raise banners where no right exists. This is not need, it is appetite. A ripple of murmurs spread among the seated delegations. The Morvek envoy, his dark khitan, shining under the council light, inclined his head in open accord. Karen's tone grew harsher, and the next hologram struck harder. A shattered Hari patrol corvette drifted across the void, its hull split in multiple sections, distress beacons flickering faintly. 3 cycles passed, this vessel sought only to question a human freighter near the Vorin Passage, Karen declared. It was met with unprovoked fire. 14 of my crew were dragged from the wreck. 3 remain unaccounted for. Perhaps they were seized, perhaps discarded. The implication hung like poison as he allowed a thin, humorless smile to form. How many patrols must vanish before we accept the truth? Humans do not honor treaties. They exploit our patience. If we allow this to continue, chaos will spread into every system within this chamber. The projection dissolved, leaving only Karen beneath the blazing circle of light. I call for immediate military reprisal, for the defense of our borders, for the security of this council, for the survival of order against rising anarchy. Murmurs coursed through the assembly. The Morvek block, their segmented bodies trimmed in obsidian sheen, traded silent gestures. Elsewhere, from a hollow channel, the delegate of the Sarah Collective, a drifting haze of sparkling motes bound by green lattice, spiraled lazily, visibly entertained. Karen's mouth bent upward. Humans are never content to stay within lines. Drawn for them. No, they spread, they devour, and soon they will menace every world represented here. His words gained weight as he advanced a step. This council must authorize force before their hunger collapses the balance we bled to preserve. Several envoys answered with approval. They have always been reckless children, Executive. Yet from across the chamber, another voice cut through, steady, firm, undeniably human. Chancellor Larry Gaiax, United Earth's envoy, rose from his seat. Tall, his dark attire a striking contrast to the pale chamber floor. Faint stubble shadowed his jaw, though his eyes remained composed. Karen, those images are forgeries. He gestured at the mining footage, his hand phasing through the holographic dust. These asteroids are nowhere near the Rathari belt. I can identify the system to its orbital marks. And those colonies, look closely, their insignias are mismatched. Your so-called evidence was engineered to provoke exactly this outrage. Karen's lip curled, teeth glinting like stone. You dare call the Dominion liars, Chancellor? His tone dripped with scorn. Perhaps you should explain why your vessels are tracked along every major corridor of resource this cycle. Because our ships patrol the neutral edges to keep them safe, Gaiax retorted. And I will not. The words cut short. His holographic image froze, then bled into static. The council chamber dimmed as the channel severed. Across the vast hall, whispers rippled like wind rattling steel corridors. Karen remained still, the faint twitch at his mouth betraying a sliver of satisfaction. It seems the human delegate's transmission faltered on the council floor. The physical form of Gygax, projected here from the main human embassy aboard the station, adjusted his jacket with deliberate precision. The tall collar clicked neatly into place against his neck. No frustration crossed his features, no wasted glance toward Karen. His voice, calm but firm, carried to those closest. "This will be resolved," he said with the certainty of fact. Then he turned, striding toward the towering doors at the rear. As he passed the Jari dais, a shape slid from the shadows behind Karen. It was a figure of translucent, elongated flesh, a central core pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Ribbon-like tendrils drifted about its frame, each tipped with subtle glow. Salar of the Lathari moved like smoke caught in slow currents, its voice smooth and melodic as it leaned toward the executive. "Well done," it murmured, words curling in, the air like a blade being unsheathed. "You've just declared war on the humans. Good luck with that." Karen's eyes flicked toward the departing chancellor, but his lips remained shut. The doors sealed behind Gygax with a deep, echoing thud, leaving the hall alive only with the faint hum of projection arrays, and the silent recognition that nothing could halt what was about to unfold. The reverberation of those council doors had scarcely faded when the first alarms blared across United Earth Defense Command, deep within the orbital fortress Atlas. Urgency filled the air, voices layered over the constant chiming of priority channels. Crimson warning sigils painted the curved hollow wall, each marking a colony or outpost under fire. The primary display shifted through feeds drawn from scattered civilian and military sources, some clear, many broken by static. None carried hope. At the center loomed Hyades Reach. The shaky footage came from a civilian shuttle clawing upward, through dust-choked skies. The colony below burned. Orbital fire lanced down like spears, ripping the ground open, hurling molten stones skyward in blinding plumes. Through the inferno, a Jari battlecruiser swept the horizon, its dark crystalline, hull streaked with bronze, moving with the inevitability of a predator. Ground batteries answered in vain, each salvo consumed in storms of plasma crashing back upon them, silencing defenses one after another. "Colony shields have failed," a comms officer reported from the pit. "Jari are targeting evacuation vessels." Multiple civilian losses confirmed. "Divert the 3rd and 7th response wings," ordered Colonel Roger Azaroff, striding between consoles, voice a sharp counterpoint to the chaos. Azaroff's voice cut through. "Get them into Hyades Reach now. Push drives beyond safe margins if necessary. Civilian transports receive priority protection." Fresh red sigils bled across the sector map. Each marked another settlement, depot, or relay under assault. The Jari attack was no single thrust, but a web of coordinated strikes, too many at once for an organized defense. A desperate transmission broke into the tactical feed from Faraday Outpost in the Vera corridor. The screen became a claustrophobic nightmare. Bulkheads glowed crimson with heat as Hari shock troops advanced, armored in matte black, energy blades hissing to life. Human Marines resisted fiercely, rifles spitting in rapid bursts, but each fallback line lasted barely a minute before collapse. The final image showed a bulkhead door sagging under searing plasma until it melted away. The feed died. Moments later, Admiral Ian Husman flickered into life above the central table. His fleet blues were unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled as if dragged from one front to command another. "How many systems?" he demanded. "7 confirmed hot engagements," Azaroff answered darkly. "More surfacing by the minute. Pull every patrol within jump range," Husman snapped, jabbing a finger at 3 red clusters. "Strike here now. You won't win, but you'll stall them. Every minute you hold buys another minute." For civilians to clear orbit. In the Athena system, Admiral Ross Mitchell's fleet struck like phantoms. The Jari outnumbered them, but the dense asteroid belt became humanity's weapon. Their ships threaded the jagged corridors where massive cruisers couldn't follow. Explosions lit the void without warning as buried charges funneled enemies into kill zones already sighted by human gunners. Each regroup attempt found Mitchell's fleet gone, swallowed by drifting rock, only to re-emerge at another angle with fresh barrages. Victory was never the goal. Time was. By the time the last human ship slipped away, every transport from Tyros, Moon had already jumped, carrying the survivors. But respite ended quickly. Long-range scans lit with fresh contacts from the Turnus expanse, Jari reinforcements, bolstered by Morvek warships. The Morvek came like fortress walls with engines, squat hulks bristling with short-range plasma throwers and electromagnetic grapplers to drag prey into slaughter range. Their crews were no less deadly, 3-limbed insectoids, eyes black and glassy, chiton plates clicking as they moved. The Orion arm knew them well for savage lightning raids, and now they wasted no time proving reputation. Station Arcadia, a forward listening post, first caught sight of them breaking FTL. Dark, angular silhouettes loomed, more siege towers than ships. Within moments, Arcadia's outer grid unleashed a desperate volley before buckling under the storm of plasma fire. Inside the command deck, officers shouted over the rising wail of proximity alarms as lights flickered and bulkheads shuddered beneath the grip of boarding clamps. The final transmission before blackout showed Morvek assault craft latched onto the docking ring, hull cutters spilling arcs of white heat as they carved into metal, rending the station like prey. As defenses scrambled, a secure link from Gyagax's office pierced the war room noise where Husman stood. The Chancellor's likeness took shape above the central holopad, dim embassy light, carving the severity of his features. "Ian, you know what transpired in the council. I warned them the evidence was false, but they severed my feed mid-sentence." "Guessed as much," Husman replied evenly, "because the attacks are already underway. They will not stop unless we force them," Gyagax pressed. "I'll wage the political war, drag them through the chambers, bleed them in debates until their fabrications consume them. But you," Husman leaned toward the image, his voice low yet unyielding, "will answer in full. They believe force grants them power. They will learn. No one corners a human." Gygax's jaw tightened, but fire sparked behind his eyes, far from surrender. "Then make them pay." "That burden falls to me now, Chancellor," Husman answered. The feed snapped dark. On the tactical display, crimson markers multiplied, defense lines straining thin. Yet in every sector where human ships endured, the fight was anything but finished. The earlier threat icon still burned across the holomap as Admiral Ian Husman bent over the table, watching enemy patterns shift. The war room pulsed with the thrum of tactical engines, hollow emitters casting the chaos of recent hours into the air between his officers. Every alert demanded something new: resources, reinforcements, evacuation lanes, strike clearances, while Jari forces pressed relentlessly across every front. Husman's hand lingered over comms for a moment before he opened a direct channel. Stephen, Ed, twin holograms of admirals. Stephen Jackson and Edward Greenwood crackled into form. His tone carried no formality, only the clipped cadence of old comrades bred in war. You've seen the reports. It's bad, and it's going to get worse. Prepare yourselves. We're unleashing the Leviathans. Greenwood's hologram inclined, his head sharply. About time. Without cutting the line, Husman seized a slim hollow slate from the table's edge, thumb pressing firmly into its biometric seal, unlocking a secure channel. Task Force X, move out. Coordinates are locked, in a remote. Sector far from active battle, a dormant outpost stirred awake. 3 Marines advanced swiftly through the shadowed hangar toward a sleek, matte-black infiltration craft. Leading was Captain Richard Flagg, face hard as carved granite, gaze unwavering. Behind him, Sergeants Hero Malone and Gene Karam carried. Slim packs and sealed cases, their tools for a mission where failure was not possible. Their objective? A Jerry-Com relay station circling a frozen, lifeless world in the dim reach of a red dwarf. The structure was unmistakably Jerry, jagged black alloys intersected with pale bronze struts, sensor veins spread outward like skeletal ribs of something long dead. The stealth craft drifted out of the hangar, engines whispering into silence, vanishing on a course for the relay. In the compact cockpit, the only sound was Malone's steady breath until Flagg spoke. We enter, plant the device, then leave. If they catch us, we're finished before the drive can spool. Approach markers slid across the forward display as they neared the shadowed hemisphere. Timing was critical. Waiting until the orbital arc carried the relay into the planet's umbra, cloaking them from primary sensors. Yet before they reached the window, a warning glyph flared across the pilot's console. "Patrol ship," Karam muttered, eyes locked on the scan. A Jerry cutter detached from the docking spine, aligning directly on their vector. "Hold steady," Flagg ordered flatly. "Routine sweep. If we shift, they'll see." The cutter glided closer, bronze-hued hull rolling to expose its sensor grids. Seconds stretched razor-thin in silence. Malone's fingers hovered over the ECM toggle, ready to jam their scan, but the command never came. The cutter swept its arc and veered back toward station, oblivious to the ghost vessel trailing just outside its net. Once clear, Flagg guided the stealth craft to a dark maintenance port. The Marines moved in flawless rhythm, magnetic clamps biting the hull as they worked wordlessly. Malone cracked the lock's defense with a palm-sized disruptor, the hatch opening within moments into the cold, angular passageways. Emergency strips pulsed dimly, guiding them through metallic corridors as they slipped past patrols and drones toward the central comm chamber. The air carried a faint, metallic tang, vibrating with the station's power flow. At the hub, a towering conduit glowed faintly, streams of data rippling ghost-like across its spine. Karam knelt, producing a slim cylinder and pressing it to the access gate. The payload was primed, coded to bypass Jerry encryptions, falsify fleet movements, and broadcast phantom reports. Flagg's whisper cut the silence. Package set, exfil. They retraced their route, but as they reached the outer ring, the background hum shifted. Footfalls. A patrol rounded the corner, 2 Jerry soldiers in bronze-marked armor. Without pause, Flagg gestured. Malone pulsed an EMA burst, blacking the corridor and locking their armor into spasm. In that instant, the Marines slipped into a side conduit, bypassing unseen. When power returned, they were already through the lock, drifting clear into the void. Once secure, Flagg opened a tight beam. Admiral Heisman, objective complete. Virus deployed. On the war room display, Heisman watched false fleet contacts flicker into Jerry space. Phantom human forces diverging in dozens of directions, scattering enemy attention. Reports surged in from embattled fronts, Jerry fleets pressing Earth's defenses, Morvik's raiders still striking soft targets. But now, every hostile maneuver risked chasing shadows instead of prey. Heisman moved briskly across consoles, scanning feeds, issuing orders for counterstrikes at vulnerable points. Redirect Fleet Group. 4. Retake those outposts. In the Luther Rim, evac teams scrambled as the command rang out. Clear Grid 7. Move now before the Morvek sweep hits. Officers snapped into motion, the war room humming with grim precision. One figure paused only long enough to draw a matte black communicator from his pocket. Flicking it open, he spoke 3 words into the secure channel. Calm, inevitable, like a blade already falling. Release the Kraken. The virus surged through Hari networks like a predator in murky waters. Fleet commands twisted, formations bent toward phantom beacons, rendezvous dissolved into chaos. Across the contested zones, the shift was immediate. On Calvin Outpost, a lonely, wind-scoured facility clinging to a crater rim. The defenders had been moments from collapse. Jari infantry hammered the gates with plasma launchers, drones strafing the rooftops. Commander Elton Olsen hunched over a cracked tactical display, threat icons multiplying by the second. Then, silence, confusion. Half the Hari pulled away, chasing the shimmer of a non-existent human strike wing. Olsen didn't hesitate. All squads, counterattack! The gates burst open. Human firepower surged across the ridge. Demo charges toppled 2 enemy walkers. Rifle lines cut through their retreat. In minutes, Calvin stood bloodied but unbroken, alive only by trickery and timing. Far across the stars, Arithra Prime burned. Civilians poured through valleys toward the shuttles, UEED gunships laying down suppressive fire as Morvek assault craft scythed the skies with plasma. Captain Diaz's voice stayed steady, directing cover overlaps as ship after ship clawed free of atmosphere. Then the virus struck again. The Morvek wing on the eastern ridge peeled away, chasing ghosts that didn't exist. In that stolen gap, the last evacuees boarded and shuttles punched skyward. By the time the Morvek realized they'd been fooled, the valley was empty. But Emberfall was different. The Jari came heavy. Reinforcements dropped straight from FTL into the thick of the fight, intent on drowning the defenses before the civilians could flee. Commander Luca Lane was ready. Buried artillery roared from the highlands, kinetic salvos ripping into the enemies. Vanguard. Interceptors screamed skyward, engines burning bright, tearing into the broken formation. Dropships detonated before they hit dirt, escorts scattering in futility. Lane pressed the advantage. Ground fire, interceptor wings, precision strikes. By the time the smoke cleared, Emberfall's skies belonged to humanity, and the last refugee convoys were already accelerating into the black. Safe, just beyond the reach of enemy guns. The colony was scarred, defenders battered, but they had endured. Across the theater, the same stories echoed. Outposts that should have fallen stood. Evacuations that should have been butcheries became narrow escapes. The sabotage had bought hours, and humanity had spent them with merciless precision. In the war room, Husman studied the streams of reports. Each one was a small but vital victory. The enemy remained stronger, pressing hard, but their edge was dulled now, divided, bleeding, wasting time. And time was exactly what he required. The stage, for the final strike had been set. Over the colonies, the war reached a fever pitch. Jari warships prowled the skies, plasma batteries shredding orbital guns, defensive grids caving under relentless fire. Morvek raiders struck through the chaos, tearing evacuation corridors like wolves through scattered prey. Human formations, holding the line, were breaking apart, shields flickering, weapons dry, casualty lists endless. Then long-range scans confirmed the worst. Another enemy fleet was burning out of FTL, vast silhouettes blotting stars as they locked into killing formations. The defenders knew. They could not stop it. At best, they could bleed for minutes more, seconds for the transports clawing up, through gravity wells, and then the shadows shifted. From behind a fractured moon, space twisted. A glare of ruptured light tore across the void, an FTL breach wide enough to paint the stars white. One by one, human ships surged through, drives, burning the distortion away, frigates, destroyers, cruisers, all pouring forward. But at their heart came something greater. The Tiamat. She was a predator born of war, unmatched in centuries. Her red alloy hull stretched for kilometers, plates scarred and reforged through endless battles. Silvered repairs gleamed across her. Flanks, testaments to victories already won. City block turrets rotated even before her emergence was complete. Dorsal rail batteries spat caged lightning as they charged, each one capable of striking with relativistic fury. Above the burning colonies, Admiral Edward Greenwood's voice broke across Hussam's channel, calm, steady, a blade unsheathed. "We've arrived," Hussam answered with a dry edge. "Good. Let's see if you get it right this time," Greenwood chuckled. "Ha! You bet." The Tiamat didn't wait to settle. Her main guns roared the instant her wake cleared. Twin tungsten slugs ripped through the void, invisible but for the ripple of tortured space they left trailing. A Jari cruiser mid-turn caught both. The first slug gutted her bow. The second ruptured her reactor, detonating the ship into a sphere of molten metal expanding outward in silence. Her escorts surged ahead, missile pods peeling open like mechanical predators, vomiting swarms of warheads into the dark. The Tiamat twisted through the debris field, adjusting course with pinpoint precision as it hunted the fleeing heat signatures of Morvic gunships and Jari frigates. Explosions rippled across the enemy's forward screen, the sudden violence shattering their once tight formation. The Jari scrambled to respond, but the flagship's arrival had caught them mid-strike, their vectors still locked on the colony below. Barked orders filled their comms, but confusion reigned. The Morvic broke first. Heavy assault craft peeled away in panic, fleeing the line of human fire. Greenwood saw the gap instantly. Alpha wings cut straight through that opening, he commanded, voice steady. "Beta, with me. We take their spine." The Tiamat advanced like a moving fortress, kinetic cannons thundering in merciless rhythm. Each strike tore holes in the enemy line, leaving wreckage drifting like shattered bones. Human assault ships darted through the gaps, crippling reactors, engines, and comm arrays, leaving their prey helpless. One Morvic dreadnought lunged for a close kill, its grappling arms clamping onto the Tiamat's armored plating, sparks flaring, where alloy met alloy. But the counterstrike was immediate. Dozens of point defense turrets rotated in unison, unleashing a storm of hypervelocity slugs and searing beams. Grapplers snapped one by one before the Morvic reactor overloaded, tearing the dreadnought apart in a molten storm.